Those were just a few of them. So far, there are 13 confirmed, there are 3 exploratory committees, and there's going to be countless maybes. It is getting absurdly crowded in the Democratic field for the 2020 presidential nomination. And a lot of these candidates seem to be running with somewhat similar platforms: curbing climate change, helping the middle class, universal health care, challenging inequality, and more. What differentiates them, and who has the best chance against Donald Trump? I'm very happy to be joined by Executive Director of Build the Wave, Nate Lerner, who is also the founder of draftbeto.org for Beto O'Rourke, and also joined by Democratic strategist Don Calloway. Thanks, guys. It is great to see you. I want to start with showing you both a poll from Real Clear Politics, the average of the Iowa Democratic Presidential Caucus. And it shows, it was done, by the way, between January 30th and March 6th, before Beto announced his run for the presidency. Biden with 28%, Sanders with 20%, Harris 12.5%, Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren with 10%, and Beto O'Rourke with about 5%. As I mentioned, that was before his announcement. So I'll start with you. I'll start with you, Don. You know, the polls seem to feel that that Biden has the best chance against Trump of all these candidates. Would you agree with that?
I would probably agree with that. As of right now, I think that the progressive wing of the Democratic Party is going to hold Joe Biden accountable for a whole lot of things in a very, very long record of him being a member of Congress. His time in public service stretches back almost 50 years at this point, and there's a lot of things that are now issues that weren't necessarily issues when he was at the height of his power as the chairman of the United States Senate Judiciary Committee. The Clarence Thomas, Anita Hill hearings, the way he handled that. His being one of the architects of the war on drugs and the criminal justice reform bill. His being one of the architects of the lack of bank accountability, which is certainly one of the things that Elizabeth Warren is building her candidacy based on. That said, Joe Biden brings a whole lot of goodwill to this race should he enter it, and I believe he probably will. He brings a whole lot of goodwill because he is the right-hand man and he is forever attached at the hip to Barack Obama, who very few Democrats find any fault with. So he brings a lot. He brings a lot to the table. He will be extremely formidable on day one, and I think he also realizes that he doesn't need to hop out there right now in the super early going because he has a lot of goodwill and he has virtually universal name recognition, right, which is one of the things that all these other candidates are trying to build over the coming months as we get into the heat of the summer.
Nate, I want to hear your take on, the president tweeted today that Biden is another, quote, low IQ individual. These nicknames, sometimes they tend to stick to his rivals. You think it's going to work with Biden?
I mean, that's not quite as catchy of a nickname as some of his previous ones. So I think he fell a little flat there. Unfortunately, the state of our politics has really is fallen to this point now where we look at these really shallow qualities and we summarize them in a simple nickname, and that's because of Donald Trump and the Republicans have created this kind of space, and they've really enhanced it. I think with Biden, it's not so much his IQ as his record, his age, also the fact that he's previously run twice and failed to win. I don't know if he's necessarily a great candidate. At the same time, though, I do agree. I think that he is one of our best bets to beat Donald Trump, and then I argue for Beto for the same reason. So I certainly support Biden in that regard. But I think when you have this great slate of young, experienced, diverse candidates who all bring so much to the table, it doesn't really make sense to go with Joe Biden. And I think he kind of falls for the same trap as Hillary Clinton, where you want to advocate for Obama and Obama's economy and all that Obama did and tie yourself to him as much as possible because voters love Obama and what he did was absolutely great. But at the same time, so many voters are really done with establishment politics. They want change. They want something different. And unfortunately, the Obama era represents that in a way. And I think Hillary suffered from that, unfortunately. And I think Biden will as well.
Okay.
People are ready for someone new. And that's why candidates like Beto are really coming to the forefront.
Let's first talk about Bernie Sanders. Don, it seems like everyone is copying his agenda. Is he a victim of his own success?
Yeah, I don't really think that people are copying Bernie Sanders' agenda by any means. I think that Bernie Sanders was a prominent mouthpiece for the progressive wing of the Democratic Party in 2016, and he was the one, to his credit, who jumped out there and made sure that it was not simply a coronation of Hillary Clinton, even though it was pretty clear that she was going to be the Democratic nominee. I think that this is Bernie's message is one that has been percolating inside of progressive wings and progressive thought for 10, 15 years now, and now the country has moved to a place where folks can say these things and articulate these ideas in a fairly mainstream way. So, you know, when you hear about Cory Booker talking about criminal justice reform, which he's led on in the Senate, when you hear any number, I mean, you know, Medicare for all, when you talk about equal rights for the LGBTQIA community, I really don't think that these are anybody copying Bernie Sanders' agenda. I think that he was one of the first prominent national spokespersons for giving a voice to that progressive movement that has been existing in progressive thought circles for 20, 25 years now.
Nate, what are his main drawbacks? Is age going to be a drawback in this process? You just mentioned it about Biden. Is this going to be used all the time now?
Unfortunately, it is, and it's not so much because voters don't want an experienced older candidate. I think there's just a cutoff point where you say realistically that candidate's a little too old, especially since we want someone who's going to be in the position for 8 years, not 4 years. There's been rumors that Biden might run for 4 years, or might run and then step back after 4 years. I think that's very admirable, and that's something some voters would support. Others would say, well, we want someone who's going to be there for 8 years. With Bernie, it's a similar problem. You know, he's got a lot of spunk now. He has a lot of energy. Age does not seem to be an issue for the man at all. But at the same time, where are we going to be 4 years, 6 years from now? We want someone for the long haul. And especially, you know, we're trying to get more young people involved in politics as well. And certainly Bernie can transcend age groups. There is a unique ability to do so. We just be concerned with age. I think, you know, for Bernie, it is interesting because he is almost a victim of his own success. He's allowed all these other Democrats who have had these progressive values for so long and haven't been able to have them on quite as full display as before. He's moved those issues to the forefront and popularized them and really shifted the party left effectively. I think he'd be almost better off stepping aside and being really a major surrogate and representative of the party as a whole, and continuing to fight for those issues rather than just running himself. At the same time, I still support his candidacy, though, and I'm happy he's running.
Don, let's move on to Kamala Harris. She's had somewhat of a bumpy start, accused about lying when she smoked marijuana in college, after college, about her controversial criminal justice record. Or, you know, her rallies are jam-packed. What are her drawbacks? Is she someone who maybe might have more difficulty on the East Coast?
Well, I think that her major drawback right now has been her record as a prosecutor. When we talk about a lot of the things that she kind of supported as DA of Oakland, Alameda County area in the Bay Area, and then secondly as Attorney General of the state of California, I think that she has a record on criminal justice, which is not exactly looked upon favorably by a lot of the progressive wing. And let's be clear, I keep bringing them up because you have to capture the hearts and minds of the progressive wing in order to achieve the Democratic nomination this year. That said, I think that, you know, she has weathered that rough start. Every single candidate that has come out with this year, perhaps with the exception of Pete Buttigieg, who's having a moment right now, has had a bit of a rocky start because upon announcing their candidacy, they get hit immediately on social media. Well, yeah, these are the negatives. I mean, you saw Cory Booker roll out. Yeah, but he's inauthentic. Kamala Harris rolls out. Yeah, but she had a bad record on criminal justice. Bernie Sanders rolled out. Yeah, but he's old. Yeah, but he already lost. Yeah, but he's not very progressive on the sexual assault issues and how he handled those issues within his campaign. Amy Klobuchar rolled out. Yeah, but she was really mean to staff. So, you know, everybody is going to take that initial hit, and it's about how your rollout manages that initial hit. And right now, I think that all of the Democratic candidates who are in the fray have tended to manage that initial hit, get over the hump, and now have managed to kind of have campaigns that are viable and in the mix right now.
Okay, Nate, let's talk about another guy with a bumpy start and a rollout. You know, Beto O'Rourke, the guy that you're associating with. You know, women are angry about him joking how his wife brought up their kids, about the Vanity Fair cover, his comments on his privileges as a white man, the fact that he's running after losing a Senate race. Yeah. Did you find this bumpy start surprising?
No, not so much. You know, I think Beto is always. He's not going to rub everyone quite the right way. You know, he's someone who brings a lot to the table, and one of his greatest strengths is this, you know, off-the-cuff authentism that he runs with. You know, he swears, he posts on Instagram pretty liberally. And I think when you look at how the majority of voters respond to it, it's very positively. They say, this guy is fantastic. You know, he's not the typical candidate cooked up in a lab. He's not, you know, focus grouping campaign slogans and taglines. He's just out there talking about the issues and connecting with voters and hearing what they have to say. And what's interesting is the narrative is so different if you between what's actually happening on the ground and how the media presents it. If you go ask actual Iowans who are meeting him right now, who are seeing him in packed cafes and coffee shops across the state, what they come away saying is, this guy is really special. He's inspiring me in a way that I have not felt since Obama, or even in Jack Kennedy with some of the older folks. And that is really special right now. What we have in our party is this candidate who is tapping into something and really making people believe in politics, believe in government again. And that's what we need right now at this moment in history. Okay. And so, you know, despite all the, you know, the negative stories that come out and the attacks and the hit pieces, that's not reflecting what's on the ground. And we saw that today in his fundraising numbers as well, which were absolutely enormous. That's
right. He broke some records. He beat even Bernie Sanders. And I'm wondering with you, Don, we only have a minute left. Is Beto the one who could hurt Bernie Sanders the most, or is it someone else that he could hurt?
Yeah, you know, I think that everybody is extremely competitive right now. Beto is having a moment. He has a serious buzz about him. Eventually, folks will start holding up his past and make him start accounting for a substantive record of what policy positions he stands for. And we haven't seen much of that out of him right now. But we hadn't seen much of that out of President Obama at this time in his tenure. It's very early. Everybody right now is jockeying for hearts and minds, jockeying for name recognition, and jockeying for kind of position in this horse race. You know, I don't know who hurts Bernie Sanders the most, but I really don't think that it's an issue of Bernie Sanders. I think that whoever the Democratic nominee is, we will not see what we saw in 2008 when all the Hillary supporters didn't want to get behind Obama. We won't see what we saw in 2016 when all of the Sanders supporters didn't want to get behind Hillary. I think we'll see a unified Democratic caucus, and anyone who comes out of our party's process will have a very good shot at defeating this president.
Don and Nate, thank you very much for coming on the Spin Room and shedding some light on this, you know, massive, very crowded field of Democrats running for president. Thank you very much, guys. That's it. Hope you enjoyed watching. Thanks for taking a ride with us on Spin Room. Hope you hop on again every Monday and Thursday, 4 p.m. New York, 11 p.m. in Tel Aviv. In the meantime, hang in there.